everyone, and welcome to Digital Dialogues powered by CXO Digital Buzz. Today, enterprises are creating and using data faster than ever before, be it through customer engagement, through the increasing count of connected devices, and even AI systems. And all this brings a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, a lot many challenges as well. From keeping data secure to ensuring that the compliances and regulations are being applied. And along with that, the most important aspect that this data is driving some business value. And amidst all this chaos, the enterprises and IT leaders have the biggest challenge to create a balance between agility, compliance, and the risk aspect. To understand all these aspects in detail, today we have Brandon Tan, who is the Senior Sales Engineer for APAC region at ForcePoint. A warm welcome, Brandon.
Thank you, Pratik. Thank you for having me here.
It's definitely a pleasure for us to have you here and share your perspective and insights with us.
I'll be happy to do so.
So, Brandon, we understand that enterprises are really struggling because the amount of data that they have right now with them, and on the top of it, now we have AI systems as well. And then there is increasing compliance and regulations. And if we specifically talk about India, there's DPDP Act. We have certain acts which are specific to each country in the APAC region as well. So how are enterprises recalibrating their strategy and maintaining that balance to ensure agility, ensuring compliance, and on the top of it, the business value to bring for the enterprise?
That's a great question, Pratik. In fact, it's a very common question that we get, not just out of enterprise customers in India, but similarly, any enterprise around APAC. What is really interesting is you mentioned about the DPDP Act, right?
Yep.
There is similar act in Europe, and we all know it as GDPR. But in the APAC context, there is the PDPA of Singapore, there is the PDPA of Thailand, there is the PDPA of Malaysia, then there is the DPDP Act of India. So what we realized was a real challenge. It's actually and you mentioned about data sprawl, about cloud, about the amount of data that that is increasing. How does enterprise in India meet that requirement, and what are some of the technology out there that allow them to leverage? Now then there is the second part where many India enterprises operate in multiple countries. Now when you operate in multiple countries, suddenly your compliance is not just DPDP Act. Now you have customers that are European, which means you have to do something about GDPR, and then you have DPDP Act. If you have presence in Singapore, then you have to meet PDPA of Singapore as well. Now, there are a couple of things that we advocate our customers. From a business standpoint, you have to understand what are the type of data that you are keeping from your customers, right? Because that kind of draw the line of which compliance regulatory requirement you have to meet. Now, B, which geography do you operate in? All right, so understanding the first and the second allows you to clearly know what are the regulatory compliance requirements that I have to meet as a business, and it may not just be DPDP Act in India. Now, the second part here is a lot of organizations then start asking, what are technologies out there that allow me to very quickly, leverage to do an assessment, allows me to do an inventory of the type of data that I currently have, and how do I map those data back, into compliance requirement. And that is where ForcePoint comes in, right? So we have technology like data security posture management, data loss prevention. So what we basically do over here is we have incorporated the privacy regulatory compliance requirements from multiple countries. So in this case, DPDP Act in India, PDPA in various countries, and create it as a template. At a click of a button, it allows organization to crawl and scan all the data repository, creating a centralized report telling them that say, look, you have data that might, be subjected to PDPA in Singapore. You have data that might be subjected to DPDP Act in India. And then with that report, they can then make a very informed decision on how they want to tackle this, how they want to reduce that attack surface. Do they want to encrypt it? Do they want to protect it? Do they want to bring this data back into a central encrypted environment? So these are some of the things that organizations are doing with Point help.
Okay, that's great. As you explain these aspects, how much of an understanding does these enterprises have based on these compliance that, these are compliance operations, or these are like you need a technology intervention also? What is it in terms of understanding within the enterprises as being?
I would say it varies, right?
Okay.
You have very mature, enterprises in India who are public listed, right? And if you deal with the public listed company, then you have, the Stock Exchange Board of India, the SEBI, and it's not new to them. They are fairly experienced, right? They know a lot about compliance, and they have been meeting compliance and audit and annual assessment. And then you have younger companies, and they are tech, and they are startups, and they grow really, really fast, right? And then these companies may not have the maturity. Doesn't mean they don't have the ability. It's just that the awareness and the maturity, it's relatively newer for them compared to a very mature bank that are public listed in India, for example.
Yeah.
So short answer, it varies, right? There's no, what is the average, standard of maturity, of enterprises in India.
Okay. Danton is another thing which I've noticed apart from all these compliances coming to picture, and I see a lot of enterprises now being more concerned when it comes to data security about data residency, data sovereignty, and where that placement is going, specifically when it comes to data retention also. So all these aspects of data are increasing, and the overall impact is also increasing. So what's your viewpoint on that?
You are absolutely right. In fact, there is a lot of things that are common with all these data privacy and regulatory compliance. If you look into the PDPA in Singapore, you look into the DPDP-A in India, there is always a mention of the data locality. Are you living it in a country where it has equivalent kind of security and privacy kind of law, and it's stricter in some country, not as strict in others. Like GDPR in Europe is really, really strict. They say for the sake of data privacy and sovereignty, a lot of this information cannot be processed out of Europe. PDPA in Singapore dictates that you cannot transfer to another country who do not have equivalent privacy laws, all right? And then you have India that is, somewhat similar, right, to Singapore. Now, what makes it interesting is it boils down to visibility. You can't manage what you can't see. So before we start asking enterprise difficult questions, like, what is your data sovereignty? What state are you in? Are you comfortable with that? You have to first ask very simple questions. Do you know where are all your data residing today? And that's question number one. Because you may have it in your laptop, you may have it on your phone, you may have it on the server, and you subscribe to cloud providers. Some cloud providers are in India, some cloud providers are in the States, some cloud providers could be in China.
True.
Now, unless you could answer that question with certainty, saying that I think I know where all my data is, and that's his first question. Because the second question is, what about the confidentiality and how sensitive are those data? Do you have sensitive data that is residing out of India, right? And then those are the second question. Now, having said all these 1-2 things, of course, it boils down to sovereignty, geolocation of where these data are residing. The real question here is, what do you do to gain visibility of your data? All right, is that something human could do? Is there the processes that allow you to do so? Very unlikely. You will be looking into technology adoption. You will be looking into tools that allow you to automatically discover and scan and identify, inventorize, and very quickly help you to classify that, hey, look, you have data that is, subjected to DPDP-A in India, but is currently residing in China. And then you have data that is subjected to PDPA in Singapore, but is currently residing in India. All right, having that visibility, I think it's the most critical steps. Whatever happens after that, it's decisions you can make. Do I want to manually move it over? Do I want to create strategies on how to manage all this data? Those will be secondary.
Okay. So, and apart from all these things, Brandon, there's another aspect which has been added to data is how it's being utilized in AI. And this is where further the concerns gets increased within the enterprises. There's a lot happening in terms of AI. We got introduced to AI. We have now Gen AI, agentic AI. There's shadow AI. So as for the enterprises, when they are considering this entire life cycle management of data, what are the key aspects as per you that you advise for the enterprises to definitely, concern, as in the first tech aspects for them when they are looking forward to any kind of tech solutions in terms of this life cycle management along with the security aspect?
So there are a couple of things. So the first question, of course, is on the AI question. And it's a commonly asked thing. The way to look at privacy and information, life cycle management on the AI, side of the topic, there are really three parts of it. There is the first part on what goes into AI. All right. And that is assuming you are a very mature company that is training your own LLM and you want to create your own AI model. Now, what tools or what processes do you have to basically scan and look into the data to ensure that there is no sensitive data that goes into training? All right. So that is the first step. Now, there is the second step on using AI. And we are talking about general users, commoners, people like you and me. We use ChatGPT all the time. Nothing is stopping me from uploading my company financial statements and say, can you please analyze, my company financial situation and give me a recommendation without knowing that that could be sensitive. And then in the case of SEBI, there is a very interesting term where they call it the unpublished price-sensitive information, which is basically a financial statement of a public listed company before they published it. Because if you knew about that, then that is where all the insider trading is happening. But what if an analyst accidentally uploaded it into ChatGPT and asked for recommendation, or he just want to do his work easily? It's like, help me to write an analysis so I can publish this back to my board of directors, right? It is a thing that a lot of us might consider doing. But if they don't know the sensitivity of that, that would have violated, a lot of regulation by itself. And that is the second stage where you're using it. There must be some gut reel to tell you that say, hey, look, don't upload this to ChatGPT because it's extremely sensitive, at least at this point of time. The moment this is made public, it's no longer sensitive. That's perfectly fine.
Sure.
And then there is the third part. Whatever that comes out of AI could be very sensitive as well. Because what you put into AI, you ask AI to analyze for you, that output of that analysis. If you input something that is sensitive, the output is extremely sensitive and it's higher potent, right? It's a high, fidelity. It's a hi-fi data that you're looking at because you give him so much data. Give me 5 recommendations on my corporate strategy. Give me 5 recommendations on how to negotiate on the M&A. Won't you think that thing that come out of it is extremely sensitive? So then you are looking into not just generally information lifecycle. You're talking about an AI data lifecycle. What goes into training? What is AI at use? And what is AI output? So for an organization to then think about holistically how to adopt AI and how to, use AI securely, they have to think of it at 3 stages, all right? The input, the in-use, and then the output, all right? And then they will have a very, very clear strategy on what type of tools, what type of technology that we need to use. And, obviously, from Force Point, we provide tools like data loss prevention and data security posture management that protects organization from the very first stage of pre-training to the actual query and usage to then the output that generates out of generative AI.
Okay, that's great. And I think from this conversation, we can definitely infer that technology is making things easier, but at the same time, the complexity is increasing. Because as enterprises and as every individual who's contributing to the enterprises, having that basic understanding or categorization of data, the sensibility of utilizing the data, and specifically with the introduction of AI into the being democratized at that kind of level, the sensitivity is equally important, and to consider all these aspects along with the layering of regulations, the compliances, and to keep that data as much safe and secure, we definitely need to have that kind of tech players and solution providers who help make it more easier for enterprises to deal with these increasing complexities. And it was definitely a pleasure, Branton, to get your perspective, understanding that what kind of complexity and challenges these enterprises are looking forward, and the kind of concerns that they need to anticipate, and definitely look forward for a credible solution provider such as ForcePoint to actually make things more easier for them.
Thank you so much, Pratik. Thank you for inviting us over.
Thank you so much, and a big thank you to all our audience for tuning in today and hearing this interesting conversation. Do keep on tuning to this space for more such conversation, as we'll be bringing more experts from the industry to share their perspective and insights just for you. Till then, take care and be safe.
Thank you.